How are you doing? Hope you're doing good. Okay, we should be all set here, I think. Welcome and thank you for joining me for this live stream here on Facebook. This is an absolutely beginner series that we have done a few of. I can see that John have joined us. Thank you so much, John. Adjust my microphone a little bit here. Hope you can hear me. Brandon is here. Absolutely awesome. This is absolutely beginner for Fusion 360. It's just you and I, man, just kicking back on a Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. here in upstate New York. Any questions you have, put them in the comment area in the live stream and stop whatever I'm doing and try to address any questions I can. Trying to add a little bit more value to your use of Fusion 360, and the difference from these to the YouTube one. The YouTube one I normally have like a lot of stuff prepared, and then I normally jump into the chat in the end. But here I want to make sure I get all your questions. See, we got a bunch of people in here. Cosmos is in here. David is in here. William is in here. Absolutely, Mike is in here. Chat. Just thank you so much. So let me just quickly switch over and show you what the plan is to model up today. Just so if it looks boring to you, you can kind of like run away from it. This here, I actually got a drawing from or some pictures from one of you guys looking to make some gears. That looks somewhat like this. I'm thinking more like me. I thought about performance racing tires or like tires on like a big like dump truck or something like that. But this is just something fun to work with. All right, I can see we already got a question here from William. So in my model, I have created several components. Now I would like to create drawings for the individual components. But Fusion is only allowing me to make a drawing with all of the components in one drawing. This won't work. Yeah, so that's actually a good question, William. When you go into the drawing session and you say the 2D drawings, make sure in here that you can pick if you want to do the full assembly or select the components. So right when you go in, let me just repeat that. So you have your model, your full assembly, go to drawings, from design, and click uncheck full assembly. Now you can select, if we had multiple components, which ones to work with. So good question. Hope that helps you. So I can see we got Greg in here, we got Richie in here, appreciate it. Yeah, William, well, that's how it is, man. Like, we've all been there, just chasing a solution that is right there, right in front of us. How would you know? So let's do this. Again, really appreciate it. Any questions, throw them in there. This is absolutely beginner, so we're going to try to dial all the way back to the beginning, go in a good tempo, and not try to rush through that. So, one more time. This is somewhat our design for I appreciate it, William, for tonight. So with that, let's hit the X and get out of it. So when I do these absolute beginner here on Facebook, I really like to start from the beginning. So this is how Fusion is when you just install it straight out of the box. So there's two changes I make when I start out with Fusion 360. One is I go up to this view cube up here and I right click and I change orthographic to perspective with auto faces on. So I click on that one. That's change number one. Number two change I do is I move my cursor down to the bottom, down to where this grid panel is right here, and I turn off layout grid and snap to grid. I just hit out here somewhere. That's the two changes that I do for that. Brandon is asking, in drawings, is there an automatic thread dimension callout, or do you have to use a node? Man, that's a good question. You know what? I do think you have to use a note, but I'm not 100% sure. I would have to test that. I think you have to. I think so. I'm not sure. Maybe in the end we can throw a thread on this one and see, and maybe we can take a look. Remind me. Okay. Man, we got Steven here. We got Johnny, Darren. Good morning, Darren, wherever you are. Good evening to Theology, Aaron. Happy to see you have a beer in hand, man. Oh, Cosmos says that there's a third change that I make also. All right. Cosmos, what is the third change I also do? Change from instrumentric, maybe? See, we got Luke here. Got Alex here. All right, let's get going. So, with those two changes, that's the view cube. Under display settings, shadows. I'm pretty sure. Oh, the shadow. You know what? I might have turned. You know what? Hang on a second. Ground shadows. No, normally that's normally on. I think I actually turned it off because I just made a screenshot. All right. Emily, let's get going. So the first thing we always got to do when we start inside of Fusion, we always start out with a 2D sketch that we turn into a 3D, or the visual styles, sorry. So if you go to visual styles, shadable visible edges. I think this is how it is shipped, isn't it? Pretty sure that's how it's shipped. No beer tonight, Kevin. No beer tonight. Sorry about that. Just having some water. There's two places we always sketch inside. Two places we can sketch inside of Fusion 360. We either sketch on a face or on a plane. So we always start with a 2D sketch that then gets extruded into 3D space, right? That's how it all goes. So there's two places you can do that 2D sketch. It's either on a face or a plane. Now, when we're starting out from scratch, we don't have any faces on the screen. What we do have is, if we go up here and click on the light bulb, we do get three planes that shows up here, and this kind of origin right here. These three planes are associated kind of like with the view cube. So you can see the top, that will be this one here. The front, that will be this plane here, and the right will be this plane. Now there is no rule. To where you should sketch on these planes. It's really more of kind of like a visual preference. So let's get going here. So I'm going to start out by creating a sketch. So I'm going to go up here and click Create New Sketch, and we're going to select one of these faces. I'm just going to select this face. Doesn't really matter. And you see how it's kind of like turning normal too. We get the sketch palette here. I'm going to hit C for circle. And you will see next to my cursor, we get like the circle icon showing up, indicating we are there. I'm going to hover over the origin. Now, normally make sure that you tie your first sketch into the origin. That's good practice. So I'm going to left click once, move my cursor out, and you will see that I get a measurement on that circle. So I'm going to type in 50. That's what I've decided to make our circle here. I'm going to hit enter. And hit enter twice, and then you will see that we get kind of like a shadow inside this box. And everything is black. We're looking for our sketch entities from turning from blue to black. The reason everything is black here is because this circle is fully defined. It's fully defined because it's tied into the origin. That was where we placed it. And we have a diameter to it. That means that we could now actually go ahead and turn this 2D sketch that is sitting on that plane into a 3D shape. To do that, I am going to hit Q on my keyboard. Q. And when I do that, you will see that my sketch kind of like turned. And if I hover over, you will see things kind of like highlight. I'm going to left click inside of this diameter. And anytime you see one of these arrows, you can pull in it. And you can see that now we get like that 3D kind of shape. I'm just going to drag it out. You can either type in here or drag it, type it in over here, same thing. I'm just going to drag it out 20 millimeters and hit OK. Now we have a little hockey puck, a little disc here. And if I hold down Shift and middle mouse button, we can spin the part around. And you can kind of like see how we got this little disc here. Another thing to note is that we got down here in the bottom on the timeline, we got two kind of items showing up. One is the sketch, that's the circle. The other one is this extrusion out to 3D space. This is what we call a feature. Now at any point, you can right click on any of these. So if we right click on the sketch, and you can select edit sketch, and we will go right back into that sketch, okay? Now to get out of that again, I can just hit stop sketch down here in the lower right, and I'm back out to the hockey puck. All right, got a couple of things here, so let's just make sure we address them. Question, cloud credits. Want to talk about cloud credits? Okay, we can definitely talk. Remind me when we get to the end. I will definitely talk about those. Larry asked, what is the best way to work with components you use in several models? Something like a pin and a socket, joining components. I find myself creating the same geometry over and over again. So what you could do, Larry, is you create your different components like in an assembly, and then the components that you are using fairly often, you can actually go and right click on that component, and you could save copy as. That would create a copy of that component that you now could save in your library, and then you could insert that into another design. So now you get that component out here, and if you right click, this is last week's, you could now insert that into current design. So create a little library of components you're using often. I've done that in the past. You also will see that you can create custom folders by clicking up here. So you could create a little folder that you call, library, and then you could drag those in. Richie's asking, if I want to make a decorate edge of a board on all four sides, do I use patterning? You could. Really depends on what you're looking to do, Richie. It could be something like, I did do a live stream on YouTube about a picture frame. So that could be a pattern, a decorative edge, and then you could pattern that around. Shoot me an email with a picture of what you're looking for, and then we could definitely do that. My email should be in here, lars.christensen@autodesk.com. All right. Let me see here. I'm just going to scroll back. So William says, my sketch don't turn when I hit Q. I have to do it manually. Then make sure that you right click up here and turn to perspective with auto faces. That's that one. So that should help you. Okay. Brandon asking, when I have a large assembly designed top down with multiple parts, I'm gonna do a live stream next week on large assemblies. So I'm not gonna jump into that right now. I want to somewhat stay on this absolute beginner, Brandon. Sorry but I am gonna do something next week about that. So hopefully that would answer your questions. Okay, so back to this. So we got the sketch and we got the feature here. Brandon, you can also send me an email, lars.christensen@autodesk.com, and we can definitely take it offline. I don't want to just cut you off. Sorry, that's not what I mean to do. So now when we created this, now we actually have, I said before, we can either draw on a plane or a face. Now we actually have a face. So I could open up a sketch on this face we just created. Go up here and say create sketch, and select on this face. And I could draw another circle, so C for circle. Do the same thing, snap it into the origin, and maybe we make this one 15 diameter. So now we got that sketch there, is that 15 sketch, right? We can hit Q again, and we can select that inside, and then now we could drag that out, and it will become another solid, right? We're kind of like repeating what we did before. You could also drag it the other way, and now you'll see that it turns red on the screen, which means that now it is a cut. So if I just hit OK to that for a second, hold down Shift middle mouse button to spin it around. So now we had our first sketch that was the first diameter of 50. We extruded that out to a hockey puck. Now we just created another sketch that is 15, and we made a cut. So 2 sketches, 2 features. And this is a perfectly good way to model things up, kind of like going step by step by step. I many times have talked about in previous live streams, if you attack parts the same way you would manufacture them can be extremely helpful. So think about like getting a raw piece of wood or steel or whatever and start carving things away from it. But I also wanted to show you there is also other possibilities in here. We could, let me just delete those 2 last features. So I'm going to click on that feature, hit delete on my keyboard. I'm going to click on that sketch, that was a 15, and delete that for a second. We could also go back to our original sketch and right click and hit edit, and we could put multiple items inside of this one. So being back in the sketch where we created the 50, in here I could also create C for circle, and I could draw and that 15 millimeter circle inside of this circle. And I had on my original, I kind of like had a locking kind of locking slot many times used for gears or something like that. So we could draw that one up. So to do that, I'm going to hit L for line. And I'm just going to draw 3 lines. I'm going to draw a line up here, line over here, and a line down here. And then you will see that it's still ready for the next line. You can just hover over the little green check mark and left click again, and we're done with this. Now, you will see that I kind of just sketched this loosely. And that is one of the things I do a lot when I'm trying to sketch things in. I don't try to be accurate right away. I just kind of like get it close, and then you know, I'll just tie it in with either constraints, we're going to talk about those in a second, or dimensions. We already used those with the 50 and the 15th. Now look at my cursor right now. You will see that next to my cursor you get the indication that the line tool is still active. That's important that you just make sure that you keep an eye on that. Now to get out of that, all I'm going to do is hit escape on my keyboard, and I get my nice white cursor back there. Now you know you're kind of like out of it. Now notice that my 3 lines are blue. This is what I was talking about before. It's very important that you turn these from blue to black, what is called fully define them. I call it my $500 mistake. Back in the day when I started using CAD, I was actually using SolidWorks, all this fully define my sketches, turning them from blue to black, I was like, I don't have time for that, right? I gotta make money. And of course, the problem is that if you don't fully define it, you can actually drag things around. And I call it my $500 mistake, because I must have some point dragged something and suddenly things were bad. Now, to turn it from blue to black, it's fairly easy. What we got to do is, and you just grab a corner, and you can see when I'm dragging this corner around that everything reacts to that. Now, if I hover over this circle, you will actually see that, it may be hard to see on the screen, but it snaps and gives us a little crosshair. If I let go right now, it's creating what is called a constraint. And this little constraint here appeared, would mean that this line was just locked into the circle, this point. See, now it's following the circle. I can do the same thing with the other one. I'm holding down my left mouse button. You can drag it around. And if I hover over that circle, it's going to snap into that. Now, it's still blue, but now I've kind of like locked those endpoints down to the circle. Next, we could go ahead and put a dimension on this. And to activate the dimension tool, we hit D. D for dimension. Okay, and you'll see next to my cursor we get that. We could select this top line. We could select the origin we had before. And now you will see that we get a dimension there. Maybe you make it 10. And you will see that now that kind of like appears like that. Now we could, so what have we got now? Now we made sure this line is restricted to the 10. Now this point is still moving around here. So now we could either use constraint, and I'm going to show you that in a second. We could also just take, another dimension. So D for dimension. And we could just place a dimension from here, right? And call that 3. So now that is black. And we could do the same thing over here, right? So we kind of like end up with 2 dimensions. That is 3. Now there's other ways you can do this, but just starting out, this is perfectly okay. So now you will see that everything turned black. So that's good. Now, I'm going to stop the sketch. Now, when you see that, we're back to hockey puck. I'm like, well, wait a minute. We just did all that work to the sketch. Hey, we see you got Dave here. Andrew's here. Glad you like it, Andrew. Thank you so much. So why didn't it appear? Well, because when we selected the geometry originally, we only selected the diameter of 50. But if we go in and edit that one, you will see that if we just hit the X up here to our selection, so we clear everything out, you will see that now we get our sketch showing up here. And if we just click on this area right now and hit OK, we ended up only getting what was within that selection. And in one sketch, one extrusion, we have added those features. So just be aware of, I'm not saying, I'm going to turn the origin on for a second. This origin in the center, I'm going to turn that off. So I wanted to show you both these ways. Both ways where you just create the hockey puck, start another sketch on one of those faces, and do your next cutouts. That's perfectly okay. But I also want you to think about, you can combine things inside of a sketch. So in this case here, we had one sketch, but it kind of like had multiple things going on. When should you use one or the other? Honestly, it really depends, right? The problem about one problem about putting everything inside of one sketch is it can very quickly become very crowded in there. And that can be hard to go in making changes, especially if you share the design with somebody else. So think about that. If you have to share your design with Frank over there, maybe you don't want to give him a sketch that has a billion different things in it. Maybe it's better to bring it up into features. That's one thing. Another thing is if you know that certain things maybe have to change. So if we go back to our original design where we created 2 features with the center hole of 15, if you knew that hole maybe changed, but the 50 wouldn't, then maybe that would be easier just to have that in one sketch. So just a few things to kind of think about. Okay. Now, I also wanted to make sure that you're aware of a couple of other things in here. So I know when you're starting out, one of the things when you're starting out with a brand new piece of software is that you know where you want to end up. You got to model something up. You got to model up a phone case or something. You know where you're going to end up. But getting there is so dang hard. And when you're opening up a program like Fusion that has so many things in it, it can be a little overwhelming. That's why we're doing this. That's why I'm here. I want to make sure that you're aware of that there is a lot of functions within these drop downs. And I don't expect you to remember every single thing that is in here. But if you do have a little time, then you should probably go in here and just kind of like see some of the different tools that is in here. All right, let's see here. Kevin is asking, is there a way to copy an object from one sketch to another than projecting? For example, if you made a shape on a sketch, planes from project to work. Yes. Johnny has to go to work. Man, I'm sorry. Yep, it will be up on YouTube over the weekend also. Can you move the geometry to a new sketch? Yeah, you can do that. So I'm going to ask both Kevin and Greg's question. You can, at any point, you can go into a sketch, right-click, hit Edit Sketch. You can hold down Control or Command if you're a Mac, and you can multi-select geometry, like that. See, there's blue. And you can just do a Control-C for copy. And you can even open up another completely new file, start a new sketch, open that up on a plane, and do the Control-V, and you will see that that comes in. You could also, let's just exit, don't save that. So you could, of course, also opening up a sketch in here on a different plane. So we turn the origin back on, so we open a new sketch, and select one of the planes here. I want to select that side plane there. You could, of course, also do a Control-V in here and paste it on. And when you do that, you get the Move tool shows up, so you can actually start working around with that. That's a good question. So you could have done that. You could copy things around. Okay, so let's delete that sketch. All right, cool. Good questions. All right. What happens to the appendices when you move it if it relies on other dimensions? Yeah, so they will be broken. You will actually see that it turned Control-Z undoes. Undo. You will actually see that it's blue now. It's not fully defined anymore, right? Because some of this stuff needs to be locked down, or could be depending on other things. So yes, it will come in underdefined. You will have to tie things down. Yes. Okay. So I want you to be aware of that there is a lot of different tools in here in the drop downs, and again, I'm not expecting anybody to, don't feel like you have to know everything. It's just take a little time, but play around with it if you have time. For example, I want to show you this. There's slot tools in here in the sketch. A lot of different ones, and if you hover over them, notice that a little menu shows up next to them that actually explains pretty well what the feature does. On top of that, let's just open up a sketch on this face. Create a new sketch on this face here. On top of that, if I go into a slot, and let's select the center 2-point arc slot. Left click on that. If I go in here and click on this center, and then I can go over here, and you will see next to my cursor, it actually comes up and say, select start point for arc. Okay, so I'm going to left click here, and then it says select endpoint for arc. So just so you know that it gives you that options. Now it says select point on slot. See when I'm moving the cursor? Now comes the slot up, and I click on that, and there I have my slot. So be aware of this kind of feedback is coming back at you. It's so easy to miss when you're starting out. So I just want to highlight that. Now again, this one is also blue, so we got to fully define this one. Now again, look at my cursor. See how I still got the slot is active? To get out of that, I'm going to hit escape once. And now I get my white cursor. So now we can define this one. Now one thing might be the diameter of this slot or the width. So I'm going to hit D for dimension. And we could make this one 3 millimeters. Okay, so now we know that is there. But you will also see that it's still blue. We might have something to the center of this arc. So let's make that 15. Now as soon as I do this, see that certain things suddenly turn black. Well, let me get out of the measuring tool. If you wonder, if it's hard for you to figure out what is next, right? You're looking at this part right now and you're like, okay, that's all great. I see that there's blue over there, but what the heck is wrong? Go over, hold down your left mouse button on a corner and start dragging it. And it will give you an idea about what we have to do here. This thing is still floating around. So here we could use one of the constraints over here. I did a couple of live streams on the constraints. So if you want to get more about them, send me an email. This is definitely some tools you should be familiar with. Let's go ahead and use the horizontal vertical relationship. So I'm going to left click on that. See that button kind of like gets pressed in, it's blue. And if I select this center point here and then the origin again, you will see that became horizontal. I can repeat that, click this point and the origin again, and that becomes horizontal. And now everything is black, which means that now everything is fully defined. So if I want to do a cut, hit Q, select our slot here, and then we can drag the arrow through here. Now, shift middle mouse button spinning around here, we can see kind of like the cut going through here, depending on how deep we make it. Many people will make the habit of just drag this one through, hit OK, and be done. I suggest that instead on this, go up to this that is called distance, change it to all. What that means is that if we ever change the thickness of the hockey puck, then it will always be cut all the way through. If I don't do that, oh, I did hit OK real quick. If I take this here and just drag it through, right, and hit OK, now if I ever change the hockey puck size, then that will actually not go all the way through. It will only be that distance, that 27 or whatever it is I have right here. So make sure you make it a habit of making it all. Now, no matter if we're changing the hockey puck, that cut will always go through. All right. So I hope that this makes sense, and I hope this is useful. Kind of like, and for some of you guys, I know that some of you guys have used Fusion a while, but I think it's just, it's just good to kind of like get some of this stuff kind of like, nailed down. And oh yeah, got it, right? Now let's talk about the next command up here. Mike is asking a question. Would object be better option than all? That's a good question, Mike. I don't, you know what, where it could be good? For this part here, I don't think it matters. So if I say up to object, I will just select that back face. And it will in general do the same thing as all does. That it just makes sure that it always goes to the face there. Where object would be really nice is if you have multiple components, multiple parts behind it, where all will cut through anything that it can cut through. Object will only cut on that back face. So you could select all, hit OK. That's 2 clicks. You could say object, back face, OK. I'm saving a click for whatever that's worth. Not much. I think, Mike, if you feel better about object, I would not blame you for that. Okay, now on these live streams we have here on Facebook, and again, this a great question, and throw the questions in there. That is why I'm doing these absolute beginners on Facebook here. Just you and me. Any question is fine. We'll definitely make sure that we touch on them. I wanted today to show you another command, and it is called the loft command. What is different from the loft command to some of the other tools we've been using up to this point is that the loft command is using 2 sketches. So up to this point, we drew one sketch and extruded it. We drew another sketch and we extruded that. What the loft does, and if we hover over the thing, we get a little picture. What the loft does is it's making a transition from one sketch to another. And so I wanted to show you kind of how that can work. So I'm going to start out with I'm going to make 2 sketches here and loft. So I'm going to start out by opening a new sketch on this face here. So new sketch, click here. And I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to hit L for line. And I'm just going to draw, I'm going to make sure here that let's just do what we did before. Just in here somewhere, draw a line up, line over, line down. Just making sure they snap vertical like that. Okay, hit the little green check mark. We got another kind of rectangle like we did before. Line tool is active, so I'm going to hit escape. And I will probably do the same thing as I did before, just drag these up to this edge here, because I know that's where I kind of like wanted to start. So then I can kind of create the relationship there. Now, I want to show you a couple of things here. First of all, we can go ahead and we can create another dimension to do this vertical. But if I hit D for dimension and I click here on this line and I go down and I click on this edge, you will see that the dimension comes from the center of the circle. It will always do that. Let me just repeat that. So if I hit D for dimension, click this line up here and click this circle, it goes to the center. What if I want it to be tangent to that? If I want it to be tangent here, here's the trick. D for dimension, just like we did before. Click that line, just like we did before. But instead of just selecting this edge here, right-click out in space. Right-click, and you actually get pick circle tangency right here. So if I left-click on that, now when I select here, I get a tangency. Hope that was useful. Make that 5. Okay. Now I wanted to show you, I'm going to hit escape to get out of the dimensioning tool. Now I wanted to show you how before I used 2 dimensions to kind of place these two lines here. So 3 and 3. There is another way, and this is probably the way I prefer to do it. Many times when we're doing CAD, creating helping lines can really be helpful. So lines that not necessarily is going to be geometry, but kind of like help us constrain things. So if I hit the line tool again, L for line, and snaps into the origin, and just drag a line up here. Now I'm not going to use this line for anything other than to control the center of these two here. So here's one of my favorite constraints. It's over here to the right. It's all the way down to the bottom. It's called symmetry. Now, symmetry, you just need to know how this function works. And the way it works is activated, blue button pressed in. The way symmetry works is select one point, select another point, and then select the line. And as soon as you do that, you will get this little symmetry symbol, which means that no matter what you do, let me put a dimension on this line. Let's make it 10. This is now symmetrical. Make it 15, right? So they're now moving across. So if you ever were looking at that thinking, how the heck do we do this? That's how we can do this. I want a little narrower, maybe like that. Okay. So this was the first sketch. You see how it turned black. Okay. I'm gonna hit stop for ending the sketch, and you will see that now it's sitting over here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and create. Hold down Shift and middle mouse button. I'm gonna go ahead and create a sketch on the other side here. Okay. Because that's going to be number 2 sketch. Remember, the loft uses 2 sketches. So I'm going to go up here and create a new sketch. And I'm going to select this face here. It's going to go kind of like normal too. Now, I want the identical on this one as there was on the first we created. So instead of have to draw all this up again, we can project it or copy it over here. P for project, so P for Paul. And I'm going to select those edges. And you see that it's turned kind of like purple. And I also like to select the circle too. And if I hold down middle mouse button and shift and spin around, you will see by doing that, I projected those edges and that circle over here. Hit OK to that. And I suddenly have 2 sketches. The first one down here we just created. And then this one that is kind of like a copy or projected from this one over here. So that's my 2 sketches. Now, this is not very exciting right now. What's going to happen when I do the loft, go ahead and create, go into loft. In the dialog of the loft, we're going to select the 2 sketches. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to select this section over here. It's going to be 2 selections over here. And select this one selection here. And I get kind of like a box going across. Now, somebody who is sharp is like, this is not really, why would you use the loft command for this? I could, let me just cancel out of this. I could literally just have hit Q like we did before, and I could have selected these two, drag the arrow over. I could have used Mike's suggestion and say to object and select this back face. Oh, maybe I can't do that like that. I hit this back face and I would get the exact same feature as I got with the loft. So why the heck would I go ahead and use loft instead of just a standard extrude? Well, the thing about loft is that it actually don't need two sketches. It can use more than two sketches. You can use multiple sketches for that. So let me show you a neat trick here. So what I want to do is I want to have another sketch that is sitting right in the middle here, but I actually want it to be a little rotated. I want it down here, rotated off down here, so we can do a loft that goes through this one, the one that we create that is a little offset, kind of like rotated, and then this one here. Now, I don't have any faces or planes in here on the center of this hockey puck, right? I don't have that. That is where the construction tools comes in. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you if you're brand new. If this is getting a little overwhelming, just sit back and just look at it as right now you're just seeing what you possibly can do, and then come back and re-watch, the video later, and then the step-by-steps. So again, there's a lot of different options in these drop-downs. I have made live streams talking about these. Send me an email, lars.christensen@autodesk.com, and I'm happy to send you a link to those videos. But you should go in here and experiment a little bit with some of these different ones. At least somewhat, I think, should get familiar with them. So I'm going to use the one that is called midplane, and you can read right in the box to the right of it. Creates a construction plane at the midpoint between two faces. And that's what we have. So I'm going to hit midplane. I'm going to select this face, shift middle mouse button, this face, and you will see that now it creates a midplane right between there. Okay? I'm going to hit OK to that. So now we suddenly do have a plane to do that on. So I found that under the construction midplane. Okay, I hope that this is good stuff. Now let's create this. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit here. I'm actually going to open a sketch on that plane. That's nothing we should be surprised about. Create a sketch on that plane. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reuse the same geometry we already used, because I'm kind of lazy when it comes to CAD and CAM. So hit P for project again. And then I can select that exact same geometry. And you can actually see here how it is created on that midplane. I'm going to make sure to select that circle also. Now, this is nothing. If we just leave that here and select those three, we get the same result because we haven't done anything. But, again, I'm talking about there's a lot of options in these drop-downs. Down here, we can do a circular pattern. A circle, they will duplicate selected sketch curves in an arc or circular pattern. So I'm going to select that one. It was found under the sketch. I'm going to select our three edges. I'm going to select a center point to rotate them around. And that's going to be right there in the center of it. Now, if I go over to the left view by clicking on the view cube, you would actually see by default, it goes into a full type with 3. If I change that to 2, you will see that it changes into just having 2 components. The one we selected, this one down here. If I change it to 4, you will see it's going to do that. 6, 5, 7, whatever, and it will kind of like do it like this. Now I'm just going to select, say 2. So I get one here. But then instead of doing full, I'm going to select angle. And that actually lets me just drag that one around in any kind of angle that I want. Okay, if this was too fast, rewatch it again. I'm going to hit OK to this. If you rewatch it again, it's still confusing, have a beer, rewatch it again. Now, what we have now is we have our original sketch, we have our copy on the other face, we have this one over here, but now we suddenly have this other section over here. So let's now go back into the loft again. Let's select the first one. We did that before. Now select them in the order you want the loft to walk. So the next one's going to be this one, and make sure you get this little sliver over here. And then the last one is over here. Okay, so now we can see how we get something on the screen here. Now, notice it's red, and this is important. Red means that the software is trying to cut something. We're going to change that down here to be a join, and now it actually turns into becoming a solid. Now I'm just going to hit OK. I'm going to get back into it again, but I'm just going to hit OK so you can see really what we just created. Okay? At any point, you can go over here to the left, hit the sketches, and we can turn on the light bulbs the sketches back on. It might just give us a little bit of better view of what we did. So we started a solid right here, pulled it through that angled triangle, and pulled it over to the edge here. And we get kind of like this pretty cool looking pattern right here. Turn the sketches off again. Now I'm going to go back into the loft. So right click and hit edit. And I just want you to know that there is a lot of different options in here. We can actually control how this is floating. So right now it's called connected. If I switch it to direction, look at the screen when I click on this. And we're talking about this profile here. 3, 2, 1. See how the whole shape just changed? Now maybe it's easier if I just spin it around, and let's look at it from the top. Now let me turn it back into, which one was it? This one. Let's turn it back into connected. This is where we were. Look at the shape. Switch it to direction. See how the whole shape gets twisted? We can actually also do that to the other side. And we uniform that. On top of that, we can actually play down here with kind of like what's going to happen. So if I change this to 5, look at the shape here. You'll see how we're twisting things. Do that for the other side. So you can really make some crazy kind of patterns if you want to pull this. So I just want you to be aware that that you have a lot of different options. Same thing with the takeoff angle. If you change that to 5, you will see that everything kind of like changes on it. So just be aware of, you can do a lot of crazy things. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into this, but this can really change that shape in here. You can actually also use something that is called rails on top of that. So definitely make sure that you get into that. All right, I got to see here. I lost some questions. Sorry, this is an update in Facebook. I was wondering why I didn't see any questions. Sorry, so I'm going to go back to Kevin here. Last, will the cut actually go through a new object placed in the space after you made the first one? So that was going back to when I did the up. Let me just hit OK to this. Okay, so now we got this shape here. We're almost done. Yeah, so when we are doing through, and it's here. If you do through all, it will cut through anything it sees behind it. If you do up to object, then you're kind of like eliminating that. So you really only use it, I would say, if you're doing like assemblies. Inside of a one-part file, you probably wouldn't do that. Richie is asking, how's the baby? The baby is doing awesome. Thank you, Richie. Absolutely adorable little girl. 13 weeks tomorrow. So yeah, thank you. One less click, that's less fusion. That's lean fusion. Yeah. Could I rotate this second sketch? Oh, could I have used the rotate tool? You know what, Pierre? That's a very good question. I could not use rotate for that center sketch because I projected it. Because it was a project, you cannot rotate it. If you had drawn it, you could. William likes it. It's awesome. Yeah, William, I really appreciate it. That is really the hope here. Is just to show you some different tools, and if you are brand new, just having a chance to answer any of your questions. So really appreciate. I truly can't say. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join these. Really love to do them, and hope they had some value. Okay. And Mike, don't think I'm lazy. Just efficient. Okay, let's wrap this up here. I appreciate it, Mike. So with this, I kind of probably already showed you. I just hit the origin. That origin in the center, it just is in your way at some point. So I always click the little light bulb. So now that we've done this, and I when I looked at this, it kind of like reminds me, like I said, like of a tire or something like that shape. So we used in the sketch, we just used the circular pattern to kind of like rotate one shape. We could, of course, also go into the create and use down here. We also have a pattern. Again, I'm digging into these menus. And there's also a circular pattern in here. So not just for sketches, but also for faces and bodies and so forth. So if I click on that, and it defaults to faces, now I can select the faces that I want to circular pattern. So I'm just going to select this face. I'm going to select this face, hold down Shift middle mouse button, and the back face. I actually don't have to select the two side faces because Fusion is smart enough to know that it kind of like got to heal that up. Then we're looking for an axis to rotate about. And as soon as I click that, the origin axis shows up, and I can select the red axis. And again, it defaults to 3. Okay, but now we can, of course, just see how much fun we want. And, maybe make 15 of them, right? Another little trick I got to show you in here. Oh, no, let's just make 15 of these and hit OK. It didn't do it. Something didn't work. Hang on a second. What did I do? Create pattern, circular pattern, faces, this face, and this face. That should be all I have to select. Okay, hit the red thing to rotate around that axis. I'm gonna leave it at 3 right now just to see what happens. Hit OK. Okay, so there's something in here that won't let me do that. So I have probably goofed something up. What is the awesome thing about doing live streams? I'm not quitting though. I'm not a quitter. Instead of selecting faces, I'm going to try to select features instead. And select that loft. Instead, select axes. Select that same axes. And try to hit OK. Okay, so it would not do faces. I shouldn't have to select those sides, but now I'm thinking that maybe I had to. Let's go back and click out of this, go back to faces. Now what happens if we select this face, this face, this face, Shift middle mouse button, this face, and this face. And let's rotate around this one. We'll do 3. It's thinking about it. No. So this face the face one don't work. And you know what? I couldn't tell you why that is. Somebody from development probably could. Let me just see if there's a red down here. I'm just going to delete it. Yeah, I'm not sure why faces don't work. Features works. Select the loft. Select the axes. Let's try to make 15 of those. So it did that. But it looks I think that looks cool. What do you think? Yeah, I couldn't tell you why that is, to be honest with you. I have to admit, I don't know why that didn't work. But here it is. Oh, so what I wanted to show you, I saw we got some more questions here. So right-click, edit. I wanted to show you something cool. You see, so I made 15 of them. You see how we get all these different checkboxes in here? Did you know that you can actually just uncheck some of these and it will remove those instances? Haha. How cool is that? How weird is that? Those developers, they think about the coolest things. So if you edit a feature, you see there's all these different checkboxes. So here you can actually control. So if you have a pattern on something and you want to delete one or two, you can actually just do that there. Okay? We got probably some more questions, but let me just wrap this up here. The last thing I want to do to this part is, just because I love to do this, I'm going to right-click and I'm going to change appearance. And be aware of all the different appearances that are inside of Fusion. I normally go for the paints, but, you know, and I used to do this all the time. We're going to do like some kind of a wood cherry. Oh yeah, that looks good. Do that on your CNC router. When I used to work at Ridlam, I used to work on the production floor, everything was steel. And I got so bored of looking at all those gray things that I used to throw all these different appearances on it. People would come in and be like, what the heck is that? You have mahogany on there? And I'm like, I just couldn't help myself. All right, we got a few questions. Let me switch back from me to this thing here. So let's see here. Brandon is saying, plane through point. We need that. A plane through, well, there's a plane through, what do we have? 3 points. They can make it through 3 points. Depending on what you're trying to do, you should be able to pretty much get close to whatever you want, Brandon. But yeah, there might be some enhancements in there. There is, by the way, let me see if I have the link right here. I'm not sure I do. I don't have it right here. If you search on Google, what's it called? Fusion 360 feature request. It's called something. Now it just slipped my mind. Idea Station. Fusion 360 Idea Station. If you, it's 9 o'clock, man. I gotta go to bed soon. If you search that on Google, you'll find the Idea Station. Put in your ideas there. That's where the developers gets most of their ideas from. Okay, what else have we got? Why did arc curve versus a sharp point in the middle? So that came through how it kind of like works through here. It depends on how you set it. If I go back in here and I switch these back to connection, I'm pretty sure that it will, or the first one, I'm pretty sure was sharp, wasn't it? Oh no, it does do it as a curve and not straight. Yeah, I'm not sure about, I would have thought that I would have done it like that. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I have to look into that, William. Good question. Oh, maybe I just answered yours. All right, Kevin asked if you do. I think we answered that. Raul is up at 2:50 in the morning. Dude, you got to go to sleep, man. If you just do distance, will it cut something else? No. Well, yes, Kevin. If your distance is deeper, then then you're cut and there was something else in the way there at the end, then it would cut it. David, I haven't checked my email. I'll have to take a look at that later. Okay, let's make a tire next time. Yeah, maybe, David. Well, it's pretty close. Okay. Oh, so Alex asked about yesterday's live stream on YouTube. It was a nuisance to create all the different planes I did yesterday. We'll be able to create one and patterning it. Yes, that is a good point, Alex. I should probably have touched a little bit about that on yesterday's live stream. And I know that we're getting to the end here, so if you guys, I'm not gonna cry if anybody decides to walk away here. One of the things that we probably spend a little bit more time on talked about yesterday with these raised letters was that yes, you could definitely pattern them if you had different letters. Then you could have patterned them. Some people reached out to me with emails, actually a few people, saying that the way I did this yesterday, and if you get the link, the video is here on Facebook if you want to catch up. But a lot of people was telling me that I could just have created one plane and sketched on that one plane the text. And I don't want to switch topics, but I think this is, I should have set this yesterday. So if I, for example, right here, we could type Rex. And if you didn't watch yesterday's live stream, this might be a little bit confusing. But we could have done this, hit, well, actually, we could have done this differently. Let's just do this like this. I should have done it in the center. We could have done something, instead of writing all the different letters out individually, like I did yesterday, you could have written it all on one sketch. The problem with that, the reason I didn't do that, and I know this is a little confusing right now, is that these letters are normal to the curve going around, where if you do this other approach where you just one plane, you sketch everything out, now the letters are not normal to the curve, they're only normal to whatever plane you're drawing on. So I should have made that clear yesterday why I went through all the steps, but you can see here on my raised letters yesterday that each letter is normal to that curve, where here you can see how the R is not normal to that curve. It should have been spread out at an angle. All right, that's a little bit sidetracked. Okay. Philip is asking, what is the suppressed feature? So a suppressed feature is actually just kind of like turning it off. So if I right click on the pattern here, there's a suppressed feature, pretty much says that I've turned off that feature. And you can see it's kind of like, it's not, I didn't delete it, I just kind of like turned it off. Right click, unsuppress. Hope that answers your question. Kevin asking, I was asking if it remembers to cut, and then if you add something later on, will it cut into it? I think it will. Right click, edit feature. I'm not sure. No, you know what? It probably doesn't, but we can find out. So let's make this one long. And let's go and create an offset plane. I honestly don't know, Kevin. That's why I'm doing this. Whoops. That's why I'm doing this. So let's do a new body. It's always good when you can stop people. And let's just do something that looks like this. Q. A new body. Yeah, no. So it doesn't cut into anything that is created after. And that makes sense because it was created after in the timeline. Super good question. Thank you. Good. Glad we got that straightened out. So Brandon is saying if you want a sharp intersection in the middle, use two separate joints for the profile. Yeah, that might actually be a good solution. So if we go back before our lofts and turn on those sketches. So what you could do was you could say, let's create a loft that goes from here to here. Hit OK. Oh, I did it as a cut. Sorry, my fault. Run there and do another loft from that face to that face. Oops. You got to select the right profile though. An arrow between the chair and the keyboard. There you go. And I'll do it again. Man, we're going to end this live stream. Lars is getting tired. Yep, that's sharp. Awesome. Good job, Brendan. All right. Alex saying I was thinking about putting a flat body on the first plane and then pattern this flat body around the center and then put individual letters on the... Okay, so now we're back to the... Yeah. You know what? I don't know if it work with a plane, Alex, just to finish this up, but I think it might work if you create like a face in the pattern area. Okay, maybe we're getting a little bit off topic here. I appreciate it though, but okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna pass up on yesterday's live stream for this point. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm gonna let it go here. I really hope this was useful. The bowl is for another day. Maybe I need to make another video on that, and we can take that further. And I think also the part of the issue with that, to be honest with you, with the whole, just to wrap up from yesterday's, I think part of the whole issue with the whole lettering on a bowl is that, you know, it's kind of like you have to do it a little bit of a hacker way to do it. You know, Fusion don't have that feature that could do it. I'm sure the developers could create something that could do it. Again, the idea station, folks. If that's something that people really need, then the developers definitely should put it in their software if they can. And they're smart people, I'm sure they can. So put that into that idea station. All right, did I miss any more questions? Kevin, thank you so much. Appreciate it, William. Yeah, I mean, I just hope that this is useful. Absolutely awesome. Oh, I am on. Guys, thank you so much. That was this live stream here. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch all these live streams. Tomorrow is Thursday the 8th. That will be back on YouTube. I'm doing a little bit weird schedule here because I am on parental leave. So it's a little bit weird here, but that will be up on YouTube. Tomorrow is Cam. We're going to do Cam tomorrow. Leave it with that. Folks, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I hope you have an awesome evening, morning, afternoon, depending where you are. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.